So when I say that clean data and first click CAPI, I'm not just meaning that do it because John thinks it's going to work. Like, I have factual tested data on this, that if you're doing standard purchase event, that shit could be 90% off. It could be completely wrong.
On view.
Yeah, on view for sure. I have a client that is a fairly large education company, and VC backed. They own 2 different companies, and I've signed on to help both companies. Now, these companies are great companies led by very awesome people that are just not yet at the level that we all are here. And so the knowledge gap ended up uncovering something that is meta wide and a little bit of Google wide. But I've explained this hypothesis on another one of these calls, but now I have actual data to share. So I'll share with you why AdFlow Funnels is the GOAT. So this AdFlow Funnels, and I'll go ahead and share screen. I have to kill camera. Sorry, my internet is complete dog shit today, so my apologies. Hopefully this is good resolution for you all. So I had the straighter line do the AdFlow Funnels, which is different than ours. You know, you won't see like Amazon revenue and that kind of stuff. This is the document that I'm using to grow this company. So the first thing that I look at is what has happened from the total inception. So December 2024, so we'll call basically Jan 1, you have 17,000 in spend and $115,000 in revenue. So 17, 115, go all the way to the end, and now they have 43. So that went up 30 grand, and they have 114.
So before we go,
yep,
super far into this,
I'm just going to reiterate those: 17,000 in spend, 115,000 in revenue. So that's a delta of 100 grand, because the revenue is 115,000 for spend of 17. That was 9 months ago. So they said, okay, that's working because the in-platform metrics look good. Let's start scaling it up. So they started to scale it to 20 grand. Then they hit 30 grand. And then they hit like 35, and they hit 40 grand. And then they hit another like 40. Like now they're keeping it at 40 grand. And you can see that we're back down to 114. So what we're looking at is over the course of 9 months, they've increased the ad spend from 17 grand to 43 grand or 44 grand. So basically added, $30,000 in ad spend, and made the same exact amount of money they did 9 months ago. So, and looking at this and say, well, you can't just look at the first thing and the last thing, and I agree. So what we're looking at is 17 going to 22, 115 going to 136. Okay, that's good. Now 22 going to 23, then they lost 10 grand. Okay, that's kind of weird. So 3 grand down to 20 grand, they lost another like $30,000. I was like, well, you drop it 3 grand, you lose 30 grand. I'm like, that kind of doesn't make sense. So then that 20 went down again to 3 grand, and all of a sudden now they gained 6 grand. I'm like, wait a minute, okay, so nothing's making sense here. But then they drop it 2 more grand, it goes down to losing another 20 grand from 100,000 down to 80. And then they add 3 more in, it drops lower. I don't know. So nothing really makes sense here.
Heck?
Exactly. And so it's like, it doesn't look like, if I was measuring this by media efficiency ratio, I would see that each time I add in budget, it maybe goes up and maybe goes down. Now, they don't really have their new customer revenue here, which is what I asked them to, because this is an amalgamation of everything from all sources. But they were looking at us and look at what we spend, look at what we made, because Meta said they made it. So then I started to dig through this a little bit deeper, and I said, hey, you know what? Let's go through the maximum of all time just to see what is going on in this account. And they have $363,000 on what they call top of funnel. And top of funnel was measuring website purchases of 1,100. Okay. So this was the standard event now. But you see, like this Markelon remarketing has got 25 purchases for $25 purchases for 54,000 and measured 2,147. Now my hunch was that because the way that they were counting their purchases, you can see something that is starting to become a trend where you have a lot of one-day view for not a lot of click. Then you have even my healthcare Andromeda campaign that we ran, not a lot of click attributed conversions, but a lot of view through. So then they start seeing this and we're like, okay, why do we have a lot of one-day view? Way more Then, there's the healthcare 62.7. There's 83, then
Jeez.
22. So everything has got 1 day view. So I was like, well, wait a minute. Let me just look at the last 30 days. Let me look at my campaign here, because this campaign here, watch this. The spend fairly even, right?
Yeah, consistent.
And this AOS, new customer only, 11 a day. Then they had 15
This
a
is
day.
the imports of new customers.
These are the imports. Yeah. And all of a sudden they died right here. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Well, I told them to do something here. And I said, I have a test, and I'm analyzing the data, and this is what I'm looking at. What I did here, spend stayed the same, customers dropped off. On the 27th, I said, you're not allowed to send an event to Facebook unless you have at least just a click ID. Now, we were already moving into that. It just took the client, unfortunately, it took them about 10 or 11 days to get the data layer to send the FBID to AOS so they can identify and can import it. But what we were doing is we were sending your standard CAPI event, which is the same thing that the website purchases count, which means we import the data that you should have inside of the events manager. And the events manager says, hey, go ahead and send us, all of this data on a purchase event. So this is what most people are using, even on this call, if you don't do first click CAPI imports. But if we're just looking at straighter line production pixel, and we're looking at, I promise this will make sense at the end. We're just going through a lot of data. So let's just look at the customer. This is API. There's 3,200 of them. And when we start to actually look at the details of these events, so what you're not necessarily seeing here is the Facebook click ID. You have, the phone number, you have the zip code, you have the date of birth, first name, last name, city, state. Like this is typically maybe IP address. You're sending in data that basically says it's an enhanced conversion. So you send in an enhanced conversion into Meta, just like you do in Google. Remember, Google's like, hey, you know what? We don't need a click ID. And Meta says, hey, you know what? We don't either. We don't actually need a click ID. You just tell us who converted, and we'll tell you, where it came from.
Wow.
So that's how Meta and Google work. They don't actually need any sort of FBIDs. They are now matching people based on can they match them to a user or not. However,
wait. Okay, that opens up a whole new myriad of problems as well too. But okay, got it.
So what you just experienced is what I like to call the Aladdin effect. It's a whole new world. So I'm just making the bad dad joke.
Gosh,
anyway,
bro.
So the data that is being sent into this doesn't have or doesn't need a click ID, and neither does a standard purchase event. So I said, how about this? We're only going to send in that data that has a click ID. And so when that died off, let's look at the 27th right here. This is the date that it stopped. So 27th to this day compared to the previous period. Obviously, all of our purchases now went to 0, like we saw. But why did I do that? Why did I say let's look at it that way? Well, if we look at the compare attribution settings, when you send in data without a click ID, like I said was happening, they all land there.
Okay,
they also
got it.
Land here. This one is a HubSpot import. This is a CAPI import from Audience OS. You can see 16 gets turned into 57, 7 gets turned into 62. So 7 gets 62 added to it, so it's 69, and 57 gets cranked up to 73. So what everyone thinks is happening is 73. What's actually happening is 16 or 18. And what everyone thinks is happening is 69. What's actually happening is 7. So when we're not publishing the click IDs to Meta, they simply just attribute everything to a 1-day view, because they said, I don't know if it came from this campaign. Honestly, I have no recollection of any clicks, but we're just going to assume that your data is missing or partial. And because we're assuming that your data is missing or partial, likely due to industry or regulatory changes, we're going to append what you sent to me into a 1-day view, because we don't know where it went. We don't know where it came from. We don't know if they clicked or not. We can't see any actual activity, but they're just all coming. We're just going to say they came from here. Now, how
does it pick? That's the question. Like, is it just based off of they think that the user with that IP and that name and that address and all that tied to the account got served an ad, and they're just going to give it quality saying, hey, this ad worked. In reality, we have no idea.
Well, that actually starts to double count on anything that's really live. So this one here, middle of funnel that's taking CAPI info for customer says 57. And this one would also have an attributed customer of 50. So we're getting one-day views that are doubling, tripling, quadrupling, however many. This one got customer 71 one-day view. This one's got customers of 2, which is really cool. If I watch this, how do you get a 71 and how do you get a 2 in these 2 campaigns here? When the one that got 2 spent 22 grand, the one that got 71 spent 5,500. For 5,500, we would have to say that there is 71 purchases. But for the $22,000, that is 2.
Wow.
So nothing really makes sense. So I said, you know what? Screw it. Let's just strip everything out unless there's a click ID. And that's when this thing literally just went to 0 for all my conversions here. Now I still get my 13 customers, and this one still gets the 14 customers, even though we only had 14 customers in HubSpot. When they're uploaded, it's like, sure, give it there and give it there.
Yeah.
What else is on? I don't know. Could have been model data because it's missing. Don't worry. Let me fill in the gaps. We're on a meeting earlier today, and he goes, yeah, I'm increasing spend. I'm decreasing spend. I don't really see returning customers really moving very much. And I'm like, well, that's a really low CPA of 1476. So again, we look at our compare attribution models and settings, and then lo and behold, check it out. Somehow we have 638 returning customers here, but then, magically got this added to it of plus 2,400, which then makes 3,000 over here. And now what? Well, let's just say we actually had 600 or 700, but we thought we had 3,000. So if 6 and 24, let's say you added 24. So we actually need to necessarily 4x the CPA here, because it has been reduced by 75% when you times it by 4. So 6 times 4 is 24. So if you remove 24 from 30, that is basically a 75% reduction, which means you're 6,000 or 600 to 3,000. You have to basically 4x that 600 if you want to know what at least click attributed CPA is. So if you 4x that, actually 5x it, because the total is 3,000. On 3,000, you have a $15 CPA. Okay, so we're spending 45 grand a month on that. That's not a small amount of ad spend on returning customers, especially if we're not even sure what's going on. So now let's do this. Let's take the actual attribution of 45171 divided by, and then we go over here and then click on the 638, because let's just call it 700, but we're using 7-day click. And so let's just take 638. So 45,171 divided by 638 gives us a $70.80 actual click attributed CPA of returning customers. Let's put that off to the side right now. When you're looking at the analytics in the last 30 days, same time period, we have a 146.61. So let's just say you had a 50% profit margin on it. This is wiping out LTV yet again.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's just all repeat. That's insane though.
Yeah,
I mean, I will say
one last thing real quick, just for last thing. This is Elevar. This is Elevar's. This isn't even first click. I said, hey, I don't like Elevar. I think it over attributes. They said, well, we're going to use it for now. And then, 2 weeks later, after spend is not actually moving the needle from a click attributed and or actually seeing it top line, we're like, I wonder what's going on. I just had this experience with Straighterline to figure out, they will actually count whatever it is even if there's no click ID. And because there is no click ID for these 2,400 existing customers who just happened to buy again, the owner's like, I did an email blast yesterday. I'm like, well, that's why this thing increased its customers by 100 people from yesterday compared to the day before. And the last thing I promised, and I'll just zoom this home. So for basically 4% less, we all of a sudden have 100% more existing customers that Elevar is importing because your email campaign went well. Okay, so that's the reason why is if we actually send in click IDs, we would be stripping out about 2,200 of the 3,000 conversions, and then we actually have an import. So when I say that clean data and first click CAPI, I'm not just meaning that do it because John thinks it's going to work. Like I have factual tested data on this, that if you're doing standard purchase event, that shit could be 90% off. It could be completely wrong.
On view.
Yeah, on view for sure. But now how many view do you have to non-view, especially if you have tofu, mofu, bofu, if you have already any existing customers or sales or deals or even DPA that's going to go warm. Anything bofu could essentially identify something that is a view, 1-day view, and everything in that 1-day view, if it's far surpassing your 7-day click, just due to just normal purchasing procedures. I promise, last thing I'm going to share. This has been rattling through my brain
We're
for a
nerding
while
out
now.
right now. I'm like just trying to take all this in.
Well, this is going to be really, really, really simple. Let's just call this, think about our brains in two different modes. And one is going to be business owner, one's digital marketer. This is business owner, this is digital marketer. If 28 goes to 57 after a week, and then 57 turns into 62 after 28 days, you have a 30 to 57 to 62. Okay, we can see that sales cycle. We see that path. Out of a 28-day range, you can actually go and double your sales in 30 days, going from 30 to 60.
Yeah,
okay.
Just do the funnel.
Right. Now, would everyone agree that it takes 30 days to go from 28 to 62? Yes. If that takes a month, how the hell do we have 164 that are just so good they just see the ad in one day?
Yeah.
Those two cannot be true. Hey, if you like this video, we have a school community where we have a few hundred members and we cover topics, everything from the basics to all the way to the like hyper crazy advanced stuff that's like coming out next month. So a few hundred members there. We go live twice a week, something with an hour-long education about something that is very relevant to the community that week, plus a weekly Q&A where you just get to come and bring us all of your problems and we solve them one at a time.
So I have a link below in the description if you want to join. And then obviously if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and we can answer those for you. And we'll see you in there.